Hello everyone. Welcome to the Pune Writers Group, and a very special welcome to today's session, our day of two poems with Arjun, and we have a special guest with us, Kunjana. So I'll just do a quick introduction. Arjun Rajendran is the author of Snake Wine, The Cosmonaut in Hergé's Pocket, and One Man, Two Executions. His work appears in numerous anthologies, including the Penguin Book of Indian Poets. He's a former poetry editor at TBLM and the founder of TQT, the Quarantine Train. Uh, Kunjana is a poet from Mumbai. Her manuscript, They Gather Around Me, The Animals, selected by Diane Suez, has won the 2024 Barbara Stevens Poetry Book Award. She has received the Toto Funds the Arts Award and the Dipankar Khivani Memorial Prize. She's an associate editor for poetry at the Bombay Literary Magazine, and recently she is also the founder of the Osmosis Poetry Prize. Over to you, Arjun.
To run the session at the Pune Writers Group. And welcome, Kunjana. We are absolutely delighted to have you here, and congrats again on winning the Barbara Stevens Poetry Prize. The book is, when is your book scheduled to come out? Can you talk a bit about it?
So the book will come out in June 2025, and it should go to print in Feb, apparently. And bus.
Okay. And will it be available in India? Or
so the answer is I don't know. It will probably be available, but it's a print on demand sort of a setup. So I don't know the details just yet.
Okay. And what's the title again?
They Gather Around Me, The Animals.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so we are going to start with the first poem. Yeah, normally in this workshop we try to cover around 2 poems, but if you're having a lot of fun with the first one, there's no need to pressurize ourselves to cover 2, but we'll try to do 2. I'd like Kunjana to read the first one, Places of Sleep. And then I'm opening it out to the audience. So normally, Kunjana, the way it works is, everybody interacts and the author is not even present. So, they step back and, we just have a very open and free-flowing conversation. Yeah, so go ahead.
All the Places of Sleep. I slept in the yellow light of the refrigerator, in the cold boxes of pasta and bowls of broth. I slept in the darkened treehouse next to the temple yard among weeping figs and sonorous leaves. Thinking of fish, I slept inside the pelican's gular pouch. Something sleepy was already sleeping there. And then I found myself in a baby's shoe, soft and padded. I slept there too. Like water hidden in sand, I slept in an igloo, hot as ice, cold as tongues. I slept in a bed made of grass and soft prawns. In the spiral of a conch, I slept my sleep. After me, the field slept, and the buildings slept like their guardians did. Little custodians in uniforms with guns in their hands. The guns slept too, and the dog slept his dreamy sleep among the roses and their thorny sheets.
Thank you so much. It's a beautiful reading, beautiful poem. Anyone else wants to read it?
Can I read it?
Yeah, please. Go ahead, Shankar.
All the Places of Sleep. I slept in the yellow light of the refrigerator, in the cold boxes of pasta and bowls of broth. I slept in the darkened treehouse, next to the temple yard among weeping figs and sonorous leaves. Thinking of fish, I slept inside the pelican's gular pouch. Something sleepy was already sleeping there. And then I found myself in a baby's shoe, soft and padded. I slept there too. Like water hidden in sand, I slept in an igloo, hot as ice, cold as towels. I slept in a bed made of grass and soft fronds. In the spiral of a conch, I slept my sleep. After me, the field slept, and the buildings slept like their guardians. Little custodians in uniforms with guns in their hands. The guns slept too, and the dog slept his dreamy sleep among the roses and their thorny sheets.
Thank you. All right. I'm opening this up to all of you. Any first impressions? How did you feel about it? Anything you'd like to talk about in general before we get into the details? Anything at all that comes to mind?
I found it interesting that she's used an ampersand in two places. I don't see often that extensively. And especially the ampersand that starts a line and it stands out,
Okay.
And I also like that in the middle of the two line, there is a rhyme, but the rhyme is almost like in the middle of a sentence. I found myself in baby shoe, a step there too, a step in B2. Looks lovely. That's all I have.
Anybody else? I'd of course like to add a few of my observations. What immediately struck me, but I'm just waiting for you all to chime in, and then I'll add my thoughts. Okay, there's a very fairy tale-ish quality to this poem, right? I found the I as not necessarily a human inhabitant, but if you've seen illustrations of children's books of animals inhabiting cozy, very cozy spaces, underground with a snow-covered, maybe The Wind in the Willows, if you read the book, or several others. These very anthropomorphized, okay, creatures, sleeping in conches, sleeping in these very cozy spaces of fantasy. And that's what is very, very endearing to me about this. It's a very cozy, it's a very snug poem. But of course, what it does with words, the refrain, there is so much going on here. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Hello. Yeah, sorry. So yes, very snug poem, very cozy poem. It's um, but yeah. So anything else? I mean, anything about the structure? Anything else you noticed? We're awfully quiet today, so.
I like that title, how the title itself is inviting us in that sense. It's a very invitation kind of title, cozy.
Yeah, um, it's quite a refreshing title, right? Even the way it's not where we sleep or all the places to sleep or sleepy places. Even if it had been a little different, it would have probably not had this sort of impact it does. So the arrangement is very precise. All the places of sleep. Um, okay, would you like to talk more about this, Amit? What you mean by that?
It's like there was something which happened, like maybe a battle or a war, and then when that happened, it was like an aftermath, and everybody is now done with it, whether it was for good or for bad. But now, it's something like, and the buildings slept like the guardians did. So why do you have guardians? And like little custodians in uniforms with guns in their hands. The guns slept too. So the guns will sleep after they have been awake. So if they have been awake, then they did something. They shot bullets. So that's what comes across to me. It's like a sad poem. Where there has been disaster, there has been bloodshed, and then everybody is now sleeping. And that sleep is, of course, it could also mean death. So that's what comes across to me.
Yeah, brilliant observations. Thank you. Yeah, I totally missed this. So yeah, you had a very different reading from mine, and I think yours is now. I'm tending towards yours more than mine. Uh, so there's apparently. So you saw this as a post-apocalyptic poem of sorts.
Sorry, what was that, Arjun?
Did you see this as a post-apocalyptic poem?
So I'm not very well informed about that. So I don't really know what happened around that time historically, but without giving it a context like that, without referring it to a period in time, this is what just comes across to me.
No. I meant in a very general, no particular timeline. By apocalyptic, it's a disastrous event, a world, where civilization is razed to the ground, and
Yeah, no, need not be that big an event also. It could be something very, very small, but it could mean a lot to the person who wrote it. It could just be maybe something minor, but there was for that person it was huge.
okay, okay, okay. So the first line, it begins with, "I slept in the yellow light of the refrigerator." Okay, and then that imagery, of course, is extended, okay, into what is in the refrigerator, in the cold boxes of pasta and bowls of broth. So when you come to this and when you're encountering the first line, how does it, how is it impacting you? How are you reacting to it? What is going on in your head, inside your head?
It's a very domestic scene. I almost feel like a pet or something is finding its mate. It's only in the last few lines when she talks about custodians in uniform with guns in their hands that takes a more violent, not violent, warlike implications.
But this is a very peculiar thing to say, right? It's a very strange thing, right? I mean, have you ever encountered this sort of imagery before? It's a very, very strange place it's taking you to. and says,
Mhm.
"Yes." Nobody says, "I slept in the yellow light of the refrigerator." I mean,
Yeah, it also
Or-
sounds like a refuge, a place of refuge. I had no other choice.
mm,
So maybe it could be that as well.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
See, I slept in the darkened treehouse, so the
Mm,
lights were gone. Now that need not necessarily be by choice.
mm,
It was not dark by choice. It could mean it was darkened, again referring to the dark part of the whole thing.
mm, mm,
Among weeping figs. So why will figs weep?
mm. Amit, we generally tend to go, see, I mean, like line by line. So,
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
okay,
I
sure.
mean,
Do you think in the cold boxes of pasta and bowls of broth, the cold could be meaning two things? Like the refrigerator was cold. Also, the setup was a very cold setup. It was away from warmth.
mm, mm, mm,
So maybe it was meaning that as well.
mm, mm. Are you reading it as a metaphor for something?
Yeah, the same thing that when are you cold? You're when everything, so there's no warmth,
Mm,
and it's a very dready, it's a dready place. It's a cold, dready place.
mm, 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 mm,
So it's not necessarily something very nice.
mm,
So that's how it comes across to me,
mm,
that I slept in the yellow light of the ref. So while the pasta and bowls of broth are neutral,
mm.
but yeah, the boxes are cold because by virtue of being in the refrigerator, yes. But the cold also says something more. That is what it comes across to me.
Mm, 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 mm. Great observations. Although these are very nourishing foods, broth and pasta have a comfort, but then they are, uh, they're balanced out with the coldness of it, and yeah, yeah, very interesting. So we have 17 people. Come on, guys. Let's before we proceed, anything else, how does the poem? How are you entering the poem? I want to know more. Oh, Kunjana also wants to know more. We have the poet here, which is a very rare instance. We normally don't.
Arjun, hi, this is Pavan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi,
Hi.
Pawan.
I was a bit cautious because my net is moody today, but I just thought I'd offer my 2 bits before you do a line-by-line reading. This is, to me, felt like one of those poems which is a little delicate, and I'm afraid of going in there and reading too deeply into it, because it might take away from some of the gentleness, and I got a sense like, yes, this cold image that comes, but before that we also have the yellow light of the refrigerator, which is yellow is considered to be warm. It's a warm color, it's a warm light, it's the sun, it's all those. So my overall sense was meditative, gently spiritual poem about occupying these various places and feeling so comfortable and so much at ease in them, as if you belong there, as if you are as much in the pelican's mouth, in the baby's shoe, in the gun itself, in the dog, a sense of your breath, your belonging, your essence being in all of these multiple things, and your occupying that space and kind of that is yours too, and they are yours too. That's the kind of feeling I got. I'm also a little cautious about a larger overall political reading uh, because of how the poet has ended the poem. If it had ended one line before, where it ends with "the guns slept too," to me that would suggest that there is some direction which is political, or which is talking about a movement towards these larger themes and causes. But it ends with dogs and it ends with roses. And of course, I couldn't help but notice I don't know if it was deliberate, but this very gentle Guns and Roses thing coming in at the end. But because it ended on this ordinary image of dogs and roses, I became reluctant to give it a political reading. So I saw it as a very gentle sense of moving between different identities, things which are animate, things which are animals, things inanimate, and feeling like those are my homes too, and that is my night as well, and I can rest there. That was the overall, a slightly, what will I, slightly Jane Hirschfield, Mary Oliver kind of space that it reminded me of. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Pawan. I would like to respond to one particular aspect of your reading. The fact that it ended with the dog does not, for me, take away from the political. If there is a political context to this, because and the poem in comparison is Wisława Szymborska's this poem about the photograph and the war, right? I mean, I can't remember the exact title of the poem, but it ends with this boy sleeping with a hair in his mouth, and it also, although the poem is extremely political and about war, it ends with imagery again, of this boy lying on a patch of grass, and I think it's called The Beginning and the End, or the end, or the end. No, sorry, The End and the Beginning. It's called by Wisława Szymborska.
Okay.
So that doesn't necessarily take it away, but yeah, I mean, why are you so cautious though? I mean, can you take away the caution and I mean, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I mean, that was very, very insightful. But anything else you'd like to add? I mean,
for now, maybe. I'm sure there'll be more as we read along.
Sure.
But yeah, these were initial impressions.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. I slept in the yellow light of the refrigerator, in the cold boxes of pasta and bowls of broth. I slept in the darkened treehouse, next to the temple yard among weeping pigs and sonorous leaves. So how does this evolve? How are we jumping from, refrigerator from the indoors to the outdoors? How is this transition happening? Did you observe this transition? And like Amit very astutely pointed out, the darkened treehouse. It's not the dark treehouse, or so. So, like I mentioned before in my workshops, right? Modifiers are extremely, extremely, important in a poem, and they can add a lot of depth, a lot of nuance. So, this one change of using verbs, one change, how you use adjectives, all these make a lot of difference. So, okay, the second is much more varied imagery, right? The second line is much more varied imagery. If you see, I slept in the darkened treehouse, next, and then the poet gives us situates it in a particular context. Next to the temple yard, among weeping figs, right? That's so important here. Among weeping figs and sonorous leaves.
Also, a refrigerator is a box ultimately, and you don't expect a light inside a box usually. And when you're talking about a tree house, you're thinking about out in the air, there will be yellow sunlight over there, if you can see the weeping figs and stuff. So I thought that was funny. And cold boxes of pasta and broth. Broth is something you want to have hot. Bowls of broth, and then yet obviously broth in a refrigerator is cold. So the contrast, I kept on feeling that the contrast is very strong, but when there's a baby shoe, then suddenly there's no contrast. It's what it was supposed to be, maybe because I was innocent when I was in a baby shoe, so I'm innocent at that point, so I'm like that.
Swati, thank you. Anything about the second line? I mean, the variations in the second line. Anything that comes to mind?
Just that the darkened treehouse is a treehouse. I think of light and sun and sunlight, and it just and the contrast with pasta and broth is something that's Western, and then we're talking about temple yard, which is something in India. So again, I was thinking of that. And a tree house is not, I've not seen tree houses in India much. So yeah, I was just taken from one place to another place.
Yeah, but temple could be, I was actually thinking of Cambodia, but but yeah, we all, so that's how we think about it. Yeah. Anybody else?
Pawan has made some comments about the enjambment at next. In the
But there's a comma there, no? Pawan, after next.
Yes, but of course there is a comma. But what I meant is that the next word can be applied in two meanings. And we do use like next I slept in the whatever, or later I did this. So that's what I mean, that it's not a direct, of course, the comma would have to go for it to be a grammatically correct statement. But it felt to me like a continuation of that listing sense.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So, anybody, I mean, care to chime in on, I mean, like, give you, what do you think about weeping figs and sonorous leaves? So, and guys, let me share a pet peeve with all of you. When I approach, poetry and I do not like excessive modifiers. I try to lessen them as much as possible. But then poets like Kunjana pull it off to great effect and stellar effect. So there is no rule as such, So I think, but it's working really, really well here for me. So, so what do you think of, again, maybe when I initially read it, the cheery fairy tale quality of the poem is not really there. There's a lot of darkness in it, as some of you have pointed out and are maybe reading into it. So what's, I'm particularly intrigued by her choice of weeping pigs and then sonorous leaves.
I felt that they inhabit the poem, like they populate the poem with other beings. It's not only the writer or the poet. So I kind of felt like these other things have life and they add being to the poet. She's not alone. Is what I read.
What are the beings? What are the things?
The figs and the leaves, and they inhabit the different places of sleep.
Okay.
Where the
Okay. No, it's particularly, my question was about why she had used weeping and sonorous, this particular choice, but okay. Okay. And then of course, the structure changes here. Thinking of fish. We get into of course, we can always argue that it's always about interior.
weeping figs, species of figs, right? So I thought that he's kind of playing with that.
Weeping willow, or is it? There is something called weeping figs, is it? Okay, I didn't know that.
Weeping figs is a type of fig plant which has edible figs, but they're not usually used for eating, it seems, according to what I looked up on Google right now.
Swati, can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I lost you.
Weeping fig is a type of tree. Its fruit is edible, but it's usually not grown for its fruit. It's an ornamental plant, it seems.
Okay. Vinaya Mandke commented. Vinaya, could you speak up if that's possible? And
Yeah. So I think maybe the noise that leaves make at the night might hide a person is sleeping in the treehouse. That's the feeling I'm getting.
okay. And now the shift. Okay, it's going from the eye. One line beginning with the eye, the second line beginning with the eye, to to an action, right? To an interiority, an explicit invitation into interiority. You're thinking of fish. So the variation here is very welcome, correct? I mean, because if every line begins in the same way, I mean, this sort of a variation, I find it to be, it's also interesting. It dissuades the reader from getting bored. And thinking of fish, I slept. I mean, this is probably till now, I think this is the most intriguing and fascinating imagery in the poem so far, and probably to me in the entire poem. But yeah, we can talk about it. Thinking of fish, I slept inside the pelican's gular pouch. So now, what sort of a sleep are we talking about? The poet is talking about sleeping, all of that. But what is the nature of the sleep, and who is the sleep happening to? And then why these places of sleep? Why these particular places of sleep? Where is the poet leading us? I mean, Pavan mentioned Mary Oliver. So is it reminiscent of Mary Oliver? To me, in a sense, it is, but in a sense, it's also very, very original. I mean, of course, there is the nature and there's the animals and all that, but beyond that, there is, So what is this quality of sleep? Is what I want to, what fascinates me and what I want to understand how it's working for you. That's what my question is. And maybe if you could talk about that, now that now that we started with, and we're getting more and more outdoors, right? We're getting more and more into the wilderness here, I feel. And of course, the next line is just stunning, just makes you pause, I think. And then, something sleepy was already sleeping there. Why that detail? Why is that important to this poem? And what's it doing with the previous line? How is it married to the previous line? And how are these two working together in combination? And how is the evolution of the poem so far?
Since
So,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Chazur.
Yeah, so I was thinking about where in life I first came across pelicans, and I I was thinking of the film Finding Nemo, and there is I think the whole there is a funny sequence and also like a somewhat scary sequence that goes through that where the pelican character is like really important, and there's also like a sequence before that where there's two fish stuck inside the mouth of a huge whale, and I think normally like being in an animal's mouth or in an animal's body is like something like you are about to be destroyed, you're about to be eaten by that animal. So it is an image that is supposed to be scary, but somehow there is such a mood of safety here, and being in the like the pelican, I'm assuming, like I'm not sure, I may be wrong about it, but the pelican is a bird that eats fish, and like thinking of fish, I slept inside the pelican's gular pouch, and something sleepy was already sleeping there. It's like we are we are in the process of being destroyed, and somehow it feels safe because there is some company we have there.
Thank you, Shazor. Thank you for that. Yeah, Swati, you were saying something, or was it somebody else? I think just as Shazor started speaking, somebody was talking, right?
Yes, I was saying that this is the only place where it's inside a body. Usually inside a body, one thinks of in the womb. We were all there. That's where I slept. That's where all of us slept. But here it's not inside mom's body. We're sleeping inside a pelican's pouch, out of all things. You're being eaten alive. It's the last place you would sleep. But on the other hand, it's a place of danger. You're being eaten alive. And yet we sleep through life in so many places where we are in danger. I mean, we are actively aware that we might be, dead in a few minutes, but we're still sleeping through it. We don't act on anything. We just, sleep. That's my thought.
So to me, that is the genius of this poem. The way it's being able to balance safety and danger together in your mind, and light and darkness both being balanced so well. Of course, the way it's doing it. and again the modifiers are for the first time I'm encountering a modifier that's very unusual. I don't know what a gular pouch is, but
It's a throat pouch
okay.
pertaining to the throat. So a pelican has a thick pouch under its beak.
Yeah, and I've seen that in Kunjana's other poems too. She at times she introduces words like these, which are very unusual, and they suddenly take you away from your complacency of reading, and introduce a very intriguing element of surprise. So okay, so okay, shall we move ahead, or does anybody have anything else to say?
This is the only place where something else is that Sleepy is there still. Somebody else is there, and it's the most dangerous place so far. So far at this point in the poem, it's like the most dangerous place that we've arrived. The refrigerator is safe, the treehouse is relatively safe, and suddenly you're in an unsafe place, and there's somebody already sleeping there.
Okay. But that could also be companionship, but or I don't know, but I sort of I find it comforting more than threatening, but I can see where you're coming from. Okay, and then I found myself in a baby shoe, soft and padded. I slept there too. And then we have our first simile, yeah, right? The first use of like in the poem, like water hidden in sand. Of course, and then it goes on to something else. It goes back into it gets back into a very cold territory, right? From warm to cold, some that sort of transition is happening here. Like water hidden in sand. I slept in an igloo, hot as ice. Now, please note, the obvious contrast here. Yeah, cold as tongues. Okay, three repetitive similes in one line. Where are we now?
Well, ice stings on the skin. If you hold the ice too long, or if you're in contact with ice too long, it stings the same way that holding something hot stings you. Maybe that's what they refer to. Hot as ice. Cold as tongues, I was wondering, is that referring to just there's nothing to say? What is cold as tongues? I think there's a comment on that also. What is the comment?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amit.
Yeah. So, like water hidden in sand. So, it makes me feel that the person is invisible, is feeling invisible. Like water hidden in sand. The person is feeling that And cold as tongues is again, like I mentioned, betrayal. The tongues are when our tongues cold, when they betray, when they gossip, when they that gossip is a very mild form, of course, but maybe it what comes to my mind is stronger, like betrayal. So, and like water hidden in sand, I slept in an igloo. So I am someone who's hiding, or I'm hidden from the world. So what is I? Who am I? Am I just a drop of blood, or what am I? Is it a personification, or the reverse of it rather? So this is what I'm thinking. I mean, obviously, it's very difficult to pen down the exact thing, but that is the thought process.
There's one more imagery, and maybe like Pavan said, even maybe I'm a little cautious to go there, but I'll say it anyway. But tongues could also, and coldest tongues could also mean maybe unwanted kissing. Um,
Okay, got it.
Maybe I'm stretching it. I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah, it could mean violence. Are you saying?
it could. It could. So, but I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm not comfortable with that interpretation, but nevertheless, yeah. But yeah, thank you, Amit. And but what about this movement from baby's shoe? A very pleasant imagery to right. I mean, and that's what I want to ask. I mean, Vinaya, if you could speak up, that would be ideal. If you could talk about it, what you've written in your comments. I mean, she says none of the places feel safe to me. It feels the person is scared to go to sleep, but finds themselves drifting off to sleep involuntarily. Okay, all right.
I thought just after the pelican pouch, you're talking about a baby shoe. As I said before, sleeping in a pouch, usually I would have thought in mother's womb we're sleeping. That's the pouch that we usually sleep in as a baby. But then after that internal image, it comes down to a baby shoe out of all things. Which Yeah, a baby shoe is kind of redundant. I mean, unless it's cold weather, I guess. But socks would do too. A baby shoe is. I didn't.
What comes to my mind about the baby shoe is that maybe if there was a carnage and that included babies as well.
Okay, okay, okay. You're sticking to the ravaged imagery, the post-war imagery. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Sorry. Okay. I slept in a bed made of grass and soft prawns. Very, very surreal in a sense, correct? I mean, this entire poem is quite surreal, I feel. And considering that it is sleep and we're talking about surrealism, it might seem very too obvious, but I slept in a bed made of grass and soft prawns. Okay. Now, one structural nuance I want you to notice here. Have you all noticed it by this time? In this particular line, there is a certain structural nuance which has also occurred once before. but have any of you seen it?
The and
Exactly. Why is and being used, as and, A and D with letters and this symbol in certain cases? Why?
For me, it reminds me of a restaurant menu. So I'm thinking of lemongrass and soft prawns. So from an igloo, I'm taken down to Vietnam or something.
Okay.
and both the places, the sand is connecting two things together. So I thought that it was not about, it was just like a conjunction, but a conjunction of two elements.
But why not in pasta and bowls of broth?
Line length? I don't know.
Hmm. Maybe after the session, you could ask Kunjana if you're with her and pick her brain. But
Also, I just noticed that after the baby shoes, the things that one sleeps in become very abstract. And like water hidden in sand, it's pervasive, right? So it's just everywhere. It's just spreading and opening out too. So it's no longer concrete things like even a Pelican's Gular pouch is a thing, like it's a thing, it's an image. Baby shoe is a thing. But after that, I just felt that in the spiral of a conch, it's just pervasive, like claiming everything.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, outdoors, indoors, in nature, inside a refrigerator, very strong contrast.
Okay. Now, in the spiral of a conch, I slept my sleep. How do you find that usage? I slept my sleep. I want you to think about language and animation with language, because that is exactly what is happening here. Very simply, very understatedly, but a certain shift is happening.
I
A
also
certain
think
Yeah, go ahead.
this is a very subtle way of defining setting. I slept my sleep could also indicate that whatever happened at night, and I was maybe woken up, and I could not get enough sleep, so I was sleep deprived. And finally, I was looking for this final rest, this final sleep, and so I don't. I think it's beautifully indicating night setting.
Okay.
And what you're saying about the verb and the noun, I think that the way it's done together is also more nuanced because of the sounds, like the spiral and the slept and the sleep. So it's so rhythmic that you don't notice this is what is happening.
Right. Exactly. So if you don't notice what is happening, is it a sleep reading of sorts? I mean, how does it speak to the quality of our reading in a way? Like in our
And
sleep,
also,
yeah,
the spiral of a conch is such a weird kind of image to come suddenly that while you're taking that in, the rest of the line follows. So it's like very cleverly and smoothly done.
yeah. But after prawns, I mean, there is a sea like imagery, right? There's a maritime watery imagery that's being built. So it was a logical. I mean, uh, yeah, it is quite surprising and surreal. But even when I find a continuation from the previous one, um, uh, for me the biggest leap so far was the pelican's pouch, the gula pouch. But uh, even the spiral of a conch, right? There's geometry over there. You know, if you look at the spirals and geometry and all of that. Um, uh, so there is a precision in the structure. You know, there is a so a spiral is a very beautiful structure. You know, and inhabiting this particular place of sleep, this geometry, you know, it actually creates notches in my mind where I can attach my imagination. You know, my imagination attaches like a suckerfish to these notches of these notches that the poet is creating to the persona. These spirals. So I think that's a very singular construction, and I'm just in awe of it. I slept my sleep. Yeah. Although a very small thing, I wanted all of you to notice it and pay attention to it, and maybe revisit it. Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. We are out of time on this one, but like I said, there is no hurry. We are going to finish it properly. Yeah, and then yeah.
at this point, for me, it feels like this is maybe about a soldier who's gone to Vietnam, who was living in a life of, refrigerated life with pasta and broth. Then they've gone to some place where there's a temple, and then they're in a ship where they're sleeping it feels like they're sleeping in a pelican's pouch for some reason. And then they're hiding. They've reached Vietnam. They're hiding like water hidden in sand. They're trying to hide. It felt really cold. That's why it felt like they were in an igloo, but it wasn't an igloo because it was hot as ice, whatever. And the spiral of a conch. A conch shell is also the war cry starts with a conch. I presume in other parts of the world as well as used to be in ancient India. That I'm sleeping my sleep with the war cry, and yeah, maybe it's about the Vietnam War.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I would like to add, Arjun, if I may.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, for a person, who sleeps very less or who is suffering from insomnia or something like that, suddenly when he's traveling in a train or sitting in a bus, suddenly that sleep comes for that 15-20 minutes, and in some place, not his home, not his bed, where he usually doesn't fall asleep, but he there are different places, but when that person falls asleep in that particular place, be it a train, be it a bus, be it a library, that quality of sleep once he goes to sleep, it can be, compared with all these examples which are given there, and when you wake up you feel, yeah, that sleep was pretty short, but it was, something like this, but there is still some incompleteness to that sleep. And finally there is a place where she writes that I slept my sleep. So there you find a place where you complete your sleep. That incomplete sleep is now complete, is what I feel. I mean, just my take on it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's it's a new interpretation, and thank you, Vivek. Is that your name?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Vivek. Yeah, Vinaya, you raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, even I feel the same. I feel it's not a sleep that you will sleep because you fall asleep after a hard day's work. It's like a sleep that you sleep because of some. That's the whole gist I got. Maybe it's because of mental breakdown or distress, and the person might be taking some medication and then falling asleep. Uh, and that is all. Maybe it's part of hallucinating, and it's not a safe space, is what I felt. But I did not relate it with war.
Thank you. Shazad?
I want to go back to one line which I am like having some trouble with, about the like water hidden in sand. That was like the line that really caught my attention the first time, that I really enjoyed, I think, the image, because water and sand, when they interact, they both like completely let go of their previous nature, kind of like sand that is grainy and like diffuse. It becomes like one thick and soft thing, and water, which is so free flowing, becomes somewhat like settled, and yeah, that's what happens when water and sand meet. So like this image of water hidden in sand was like very, very beautiful, but it's immediately followed by I slept in an igloo, and that feels like quite the opposite of how I imagine water and sand meeting. And water's uh, an igloo seems like, in my mind, it's like a very hard thing. It's like a very it's a hard structure made of blocks of ice, and you as an entity will remain like separate from it when you are inside of it. And I feel like I see what's happening here. I think the water hidden in sand is like there is some. It's pointing to the idea that water never really loses its nature. Like even when it mixes with sand, it's just hiding there, and like it can come out of there, but it feels a bit jarring to me, like water hidden in sand going to I slept in an igloo.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shazad. Okay. Now the succeeding lines are completely okay. We are really out of time, but yeah, okay, all right. One more, Mandakini, and then we'll move on to the last lines, and then we'll finish the poem, and I think we'll probably reach 5:30 by the time this poem gets done. But all right, that's fine. Mandakini, please go ahead.
Sorry, I just joined in late, but I just heard the last 3, 4 comments, so I don't want to repeat anything. But what struck me here is the speaker of the poem. I slept in the yellow light of the refrigerator. So who is this sleeping? Who is sleeping in the cold boxes of pasta and bowls of broth, which suggests food on one side and a domestic environment, and then we are in a garden and temple, and then we are also like food inside the pelican, and something sleepy was already there. And then I found the movement very interesting, a baby shoe, already like internal inside the pelican. And what Shazor said, I just wanted to add to that, like the complete interpenetration of water and sand. And then we are in the water element. This is the feeling I get, igloo and hot as ice. And then we come to like grass, soft prawns. So this suggests all for me an oceanic or water element environment. And then for me, the poem moves into a kind of like a broad cinemascope picture. So from the water body to the fields, the cities, the little custodians, and then there's a sort of, a companionship, a familiar, the dog. Yeah. So at the end, the poem presents a kind of pastoral, a kind of peaceful, all-encompassing vision to my mind. And of course, I love the poem too. And that's all for now from me.
Okay. Thank you, Mandakini. Okay, now yeah, you were audible. After me, the field slept, and the buildings slept like their guardians did. Little custodians in uniforms with guns in their hands. The guns slept too. And the dog slept his dreamy sleep among the roses and their thorny sheets. So how is it ending? What's the poem leaving us with? How are we getting back from the sea into the land? Who are the guardians? Who are these custodians? What is this sudden imagery of guns? What's it happening? How is it winding up? And how is that settling in your head? Considering everything else that we've been offered. Javed, could you speak up, please? Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I pretty much typed what I wanted to say. I felt that there's definitely conflict, and the speaker is going through trauma, or is away from trauma, or trying to reconcile with something, and they finally let in to that feeling, or they've sunk into themselves, and maybe sleep is the metaphor that they're using to connect with everything else around them. So I see this act of sleeping as letting go. I see the act of sleeping as acceptance. I see the act of sleeping as being one with the universe and knowing that everything and nothing is permanent. So that's how I relate to this one.
Okay, thank you. Anybody want to talk about the ending, which I just mentioned?
I just felt settled and comfortable because for the first time in the whole poem on sleep, there are dreams and the dog is having them. So it, it didn't end on a very unsettling note for me. Even I know there are guts and there are thorny sheets, it just felt like some sense of completion.
Okay. Okay, anybody want to add anything here? I mean, we are finishing it a little hastily, but if we are to do one more poem, I think we better wrap this up now. Any concluding remarks? Anything else which we missed? All right. Kunjana, you can talk about the poem if you wish to. Again, completely optional. You can maybe talk a little about it or not. That's entirely up to you. So
Uh, I just I'm a little bit amazed by all the interpretations because I don't think so much while writing, and I also go by sound. So sometimes I'm not making logical sense. Well, most times I'm not making logical sense, but I follow the sound. Uh, so my images can seem random. And also, like Mandakini said, the last part of the poem was a practical problem I was having, that um, I I ran out of these specific images, like the spiral of the conch or the pelican's pouch. Um, so I broadened the scope, and I had to end somewhere. So I ended with broadening the scope and with opening up the poem to include others. So yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much for that. And okay, Kunjal, can we move on to the next one? We'll take a 5 minute break, and I think um, the dog poem.
Take a group photo, Arjun.
Sure.
Could you please turn on your cameras so we can take a group photo? Arya, Amit, Vinaya, Cesar, Vivek, Shankar, you there? Should we take a photo? I'm taking it anyway. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to take another one. Just give me 5 seconds. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Taken it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. We'll take a 5 minute break and come back.
Shankar, will you please look at me for a second? You were not there in the food.
We're going to cut his name.
All right. Welcome back. And just one reading here. Anybody care to volunteer? Yeah, go ahead, Jav.
Home with no dogs in it. Okay, I just lost that screen. Sorry. Wow, where did it go? Yeah, apologies. I think I can only see Kinjo is presenting, but nothing on the screen. Wait. Yeah, it's back on. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Poem with no dogs in it. When the dogs were gone, they left behind no song of barks. Dog owners pulled at the leash, but no one pulled back. There was no exchange, just an absence of form, like the constellations of Canis Major stolen from the sky. Everywhere we went, we saw empty jaws, rotten teeth, piles of bare ribs. But in the lack of fur, even the ticks were nowhere to be found. Leopards emerged from the fingers of the city and entered our gated colonies. Now they could not eat the pariahs. We roamed with torches in our hands and fires ablaze. Keelbacks swarm in the black waters near town, not just our pets. The does were gone too from the ghats. We searched in the dark, but there was no God to be found. Our hands missed the grip of muzzles, the pliancy of cocked ears, the watch of tilted gaze. It was a missing of a giant proportion, a giant scale. We raised statues of canines from cardboards, from clay, from the long jaw of memory. Days passed without howls. One by one, we lost our vowel sounds.
Splendid, thank you. All right. We do not have, and uh, this is as sophisticated or even more than the previous poem, and we'll be stuck here till, maybe I shouldn't say stuck, but we'll be here till 7 or longer if we get into a line by line reading. So I'm just going to open it to everybody. I would just like to point out certain nuances here. Why the poem begins, with no, it says poem with no dogs in it, but dogs are certainly in it. And how are they in it? And how are they not in it? Let's talk about that. And of course, and certain usages like song of barks, not sound of barks. And how it just moves from dog owners to the sky itself, the constellation of kind of major stolen from the sky. Just the leap over there, and how the poem just enlarges itself, becomes gigantic in its scope. So let's talk about the scope of this. How this and then what could be the essence of it. Is it talking about extinction? How are you reading it? And what are the peculiar constructions which you have noted? What how does it appeal to you on certain levels? Are there any particular lines? So if you need, I'm I'm assuming all of you have read this now at least once, and you heard Jarvis's reading. But I'll give you a couple more minutes, maybe till 5:35, to just read it once again, take notes or mental notes, and then I'll leave it open. Yes? 5:35. Read the poem, please, again. All right, let's go ahead. Anybody? Mandakini, would you like to say something?
Sure. Happy to sound off. No, but I enjoyed the poem very much. And Kunjana has this capacity to play with sound. And it was very obvious in Javed's beautiful reading. I just want to draw everybody's attention to the fineness of her vision, that when she draws our attention to the absence, she does it in a way of which is unexpected or not very obvious. So right from the sky, Canis Major, the empty, let's say, jowls, rotten teeth, piles of bare ribs. So from, let's say, the sublime or the arboreal to the, abject. And then I think it gets really interesting because there's also even like something symbolic happening in the lack of fur. Even the ticks were nowhere to be found. So there's, the symbiotic part, and also honoring the smallest forms of life. And then leopards emerged from the fringes of the city and entered our gated colonies. So yes, exactly, Vinay, like if bees were to go extinct. And so, there's also the interpenetration of the dog world and the human world, and the leopards are also like metaphorical, everything's we shield ourselves from, with the presence of these companions and familiars. And I'm going to shut up. I would like to hear all of you.
No, by all means, that was that was brilliant. Thank you for that. Yeah, but if anybody else wants to add to or what Mandakini said or speak about this, please.
For me, this poem and the previous one even is has this same structural device. Is this that what happens if? What happens if I sleep here and there and there and there and there and everywhere too? And here also, what happens if the dogs are not there? But then, of course, the poet doesn't go to the logical conclusion because that would be boring. She imagines things, and probably, and I'm not trying to be pedantic here, probably it's more magic realism than surrealism, because this, I'm very sure, or at least I'm guessing, that those visuals are coming to her, and now she's kind of weaving them together, and probably with the intuition of sound. And now it is taking me to a place which is a strange place. I kind of know this place, but I do not know it. And yet the visuals are so vivid and at the same time so intimate and soft that it gives an extraordinary feeling. I will not try to explain this poem rationally or logically, because I'm afraid that if I do that, then the pleasure that I'm getting right now will be a little diminished.
Thank you. Okay. I'm a little how do I put it? I want to say that I want to explore this movement from what is English, Western English to to local imagery. She talks about gods and dolls and pariahs. So let's talk about that, if possible. If any of you noticed it, how is it going from there to there?
cleanly, effortlessly.
Kunjal, I don't know why the poem is not appearing on the presentation anymore, at least for me. I don't know what I clicked.
It's visible for me.
I mean, it's visible, but it's okay. Maybe I need to click something else. I don't know. Yeah.
Let me stop sharing and share again. So
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Now it's fine. Yeah. Size was okay. Yeah. Just reduce it a bit so that you know. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Anybody? Shazor, Javed, Vivek, Vinaya, please go ahead.
I'm still stuck with one line. I'm just thinking of how the dogs were sacrificial lambs up until that point. Now that you know the people are forced to carry torches, yeah, that's somehow haunting me.
How is absence given a structure and a form in this poem? And what does that absence signify to you?
Loss of fealtiness. I don't know.
I'm sorry, lots of?
There is no one that can be as fealty as a dog, or loyal or loving as a dog.
Um, I agree with you, but cat owners would disagree, I'm sure. But fine, let's not get into that right now. Yeah, I'm reading this with two dogs beside me. So
There are all the specific things that are lost. Like, so for some reason, the bones are still there, I think, uh, but the rest of the dogs are gone, empty jaws and rotten teeth and piles of bare ribs are like there as remnants. But there is no fur, and because there's no dogs, obviously. But what I found interesting in this line was that in the absence of dogs, there is something nice that accidentally ends up happening, which is that there's no more ticks to worry about. But immediately from there, it goes into the most horrifying image of the poem, I think, where leopards emerge, and I think again I'm going back to this idea of safety that was there in the previous poem, and like in some ways, I think this is like the polar opposite of the sleep poem, and we have lost all sense of security now because uh, something that was such a so, so many things, not just a loyal pet or a protective creature, just as a source of comfort and a source of play and joy. And yeah, I'm just still very haunted by the line of leopards emerging and entering our gated colonies. That is like I feel like because I have not lived in Bombay or like in places where leopards, I guess, are. This is like an actual occurrence. This is like more shocking to me. But yeah, that all the safeties of civilization seem to depend on the presence of dogs.
I just felt that because it opened with a song of barks and ends with the vowel sounds, and I just felt like the poem is also saying that forget the dogs, that what will happen if we don't have sounds. And there is jowl and howl and jaw, and there's so much sound. So I just felt that there's like a juxtaposition between the actual loss of dogs and what if we can't, if we don't have these sounds. So the loss will be as big in that sense. And still there's hope because there are vowel sounds, there are sounds in this poem. So not everything is lost.
Thank you, Kunjal. Yes, and thank you, Shazor. Of course. I mean, had this been about cats, I would not have read this poem. Sorry, but but we do have a cat. We have a leopard, but that's all right. Yeah. It only emerged from the fringes of the city. And what about this? What about this? Yeah, where she begins with this local imagery. This, what's the pariah? Arun pariah. Oh, sorry, but yeah, coincidence. But yeah. So the dog is the underdog, right? In our gated colonies.
Hmm.
What's a dole? Can anybody? What do you mean by dole? Doles, or how do you?
Those are Indian native
Dole
dogs.
is a wild dog.
Indies.
Oh,
Huh?
okay.
And pariahs are like, street dogs, basically. And pariah is another word, as you probably know. I think doesn't it come from Tamil or something? I mean, in Hindi, you say pariah, apna pariah, like it's ours and the outsider, the one that is excluded. I remember reading the etymology of that word somewhere. I'll dig it up for you guys later.
In Tamil, it's a casteist word.
It is. Yeah.
There is. Javed, you speak Tamil, no?
Yes, of course.
You know the use of paraya in Tamil?
Yeah, Parayan.
Parayan.
That's how they.
Palan.
Yeah, they pronounce it as Parayan.
Yeah.
Which is a casteist word, like you mentioned.
It's a casteist slur used for Dalits.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, of course, it's being integrated into English, and it's like, yeah, it's an outcast, I think, in English. And so if you go to the astronomical, and then we get to the theological, and we searched in not just our pets, the doles were gone too from the gods. We searched in the dark, but there was no God to be found. And guys, what is the most obvious thing here? I mean, what is the most obvious verbal play, linguistic play here?
Come on.
The mirror image of dog and God.
Exactly. Without explicitly saying it, just integrated into the poem seamlessly. And without dogs, right, what we would miss, what our absences would be, the human absence, the absence, the end of the leash, the absence of the grip of muzzles. Maybe the one line I would have done away with in the entire poem, it was the missing of a giant proportion, a giant scale. Maybe that, I think, is implicit in the poem, and I think that one line could have been done away with if it were me. But maybe I'm nitpicking. But such a masterful ending. Days pass without howls, and like Kinjal pointed out, the vowels. It says, the poem loses its vowels. It claims to. I mean, the poem doesn't lose its vowels, but it claims that the inhabitants of the poem lost their vowels in the absence of dogs. But it's still, of course, a poem rich with vowels. And of course, both these poems, the previous one and this, all the places of sleep and poem with no dogs in it, both of these are non-stanzaic, if you observe. Would you call these prose poems? Or I'm just curious.
This one is a prose poem, no?
I wonder what a prose poem is. So, like, what is a prose poem? Is it a narrative? I mean, I don't understand what a prose poem is. Just the lack of stanzas makes it a prose poem? I don't know.
But the line enjambments are not that important. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also perplexed. I mean, I don't know what the definition of prose. I mean, I don't really understand what a prose poem is. How to differentiate it from a non-prose poem, but okay, we're down to our last 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. So anything else? What are keelbacks? Snakes, I'm assuming, right?
Kunjana commented yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it's curious that it's black waters and not backwaters.
I think it would have been too much back, no? Keel back and backwaters. And black waters are somehow more evocative. It's more visual. Something dark, something, unfathomable about black waters. Huh? Go by black, not nice.
Okay, Arun, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, but we can ask Kunjana about this one too, right?
Yeah.
Since she's here, so we take the advantage of that.
I don't have anything to say about this one. I think all of you were pretty spot on. And thanks for that line while I edit, Arjun. I can still delete it from because the manuscript. No. It's a good edit, but I did it mostly for sound. But yeah, I can still. I'll think about it.
Thank you. Okay. This was a pleasure having you, Kunjana, and thank you for these. And I hope these poems will be in the manuscript and in the book.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like for those of you who missed it, Kunjana's book is coming out next year, and I hope all of us will, all of us will home it in our libraries, and Kunjana is, of course, one of the brightest and most promising poets writing today, not just in India. And let's all applaud her. A round of applause and wish her all the best.
Thank you. Also, I just want to say thank you for this, and it's such a privilege to be read, for my work to be read so closely. So, thank you.
I'm sure we'll do more of your readings, in the future. Yeah, when your book comes out, definitely. But thanks to all of you, for chiming in, for being here, for giving time to poetry. And again, Arun, Kinjal, everybody else, thank you for organizing this.
Thank you, Arjun, for doing it every month and bringing so many good poems for us to read. And this time the poet herself was here. That is, even bigger, so joy and privilege. Kunjana, thank you very much for being here. I read your poems on Instagram, and sometimes we discuss about it too. Probably you do not know, probably you know it. And that's what happens, that when someone writes so well, we'll look at her works with joy and only a little bit of envy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Arun. And then also, one thing I forgot to mention, Kinjal, Kunjana, and Yashasvi, they started a new poetry prize called the Osmosis Poetry Prize. Details are yet to be announced, I think. But
yes, already Kinjal already shared that the good news with us, and we are absolutely, thrilled and waiting. When is the deadline? When is this coming so that we can submit? Fingers crossed and whatnot.
Splendid. Thank you, everybody, and very good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.